Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of Wrestling Wednesday, my weekly show where I talk about wrestling. This week, of course, we had the big old SummerSlam weekend out in Brooklyn. I watched for the first time my first NXT TakeOver event. After really, I'd only ever really watched the DIY Authors of Pain event from maybe the last TakeOver? Whenever that one was and DIY broke up, I saw that match after people were like, you need to see this. And I'd heard that DIY was such a phenomenal team, so I checked in on that, while I was waiting for another pay-per-view or something like that. I watched that match. But this was the first time I'd watched an NXT all the way through. There was a lot of great wrestling there, and I get why everybody loves that, and the buzz that night was basically like, well, SummerSlam is definitely not going to top that because NXT has a tighter show. There's no filler matches or anything like that to kind of break up the pace. Everything is big and everything is solid because this is their chance to showcase for an audience that's gonna maybe be tuning in more so than you have watching NXT on a regular basis. So, with all eyes on them, they want to put on the best show they can. So you had 5 stellar matches there at the Barclays at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn number 3. I personally, because I don't watch NXT stuff on any kind of regular basis, outside of knowing some of the names, there are definitely people on there I was like, I don't know, Almsa, whoever went against Johnny Gargano. I didn't know him. I didn't know Ember Moon. So some of these names I've not even heard. So I didn't have that personal investment in who was winning, who was losing. But it's impossible to deny that there was solid wrestling afoot and kind of across the board there. I also had no idea who the big Ring of Honor guys who were coming in were, apparently, Adam Cole and whoever else came in after the tag match. Because I don't follow the indie scene closely enough, I didn't know any of those people. So their debuts, I think, were lost on me a little bit. But overall, NXT was great. But because I have a more personal investment in the wrestlers and the stories, so to speak, going on Raw and SmackDown, SummerSlam still ends up being a better show for me, even though, as we will touch on here, I didn't think SummerSlam was all that great of a show. So let's talk about it. Let me get out of the way first. I thought SummerSlam was a huge step up over Battleground, which was just an abomination outside of the lovely Usos and New Day match that we had at Battleground. I thought Battleground just was garbage across the board, and SummerSlam at least didn't do worse than that. So, kicking things off with the SummerSlam pre-show, you had the sad thrown together match, 6-man tag match of the Hardys and Jason Jordan versus The Miz and The Miztourage. And The Miztourage ends up taking the win, and they did it, in front of 30 people or whatever, because they were wrestling at 5:20 or something like that, and the Barclays didn't let people in until 5 o'clock, so most of the arena hadn't even gotten into the building, let alone taken their seats yet, and these guys were very visibly performing to a largely empty arena. It was visible that they were never showing you shots from the hard cam, because they didn't want to show how many seats were empty. So every shot of that fight, if you go back and watch it, is basically from the cameras around the arena, focusing on the action rather than the audience around. You have that hilarious image that made the rounds of Miz yelling at the one guy in the arena or whatever. It's embarrassing to see the team that had the biggest pop out of WrestleMania, the Hardy Boys, in their return, being forced to perform here in the pre-show to nobody. That was just a big old letdown, disappointment. The match itself was fine, but they had nothing to draw from, and so it's going to be forgettable in the annals of history. After that, you had the Cruiserweight Championship match where Neville retook his throne. don't know why they gave it to Zawa for a 6-day turnaround if they were going to just put it right back on Neville. Like, why break up Neville's huge long streak of domination? Why give it to Zawa only to take it back? I don't get the booking for that. I don't. It doesn't make sense. Then finally in the pre-show we had the SmackDown tag team titles with the Usos taking it over New Day, and just like Battleground, I thought this ended up probably being the match of the night. At least for me it was. I was way more invested in the back and forth. Fortunately, by the time this rolled around in the pre-show, most of the audience had started to show up, so they weren't performing to nobody. But yeah, great athleticism all around, great false finishes, great storytelling of the match. I'm sad to see the New Day lose it again, but I think it's been a great rivalry, and so I'm interested to see, if this continues on where we go with New Day versus the Usos. I think the Usos are doing a great job as heels. Maybe we see New Day turn heel or something. I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see where the New Day goes. Nah, New Day's never going to go heel because their merchandise sells way too much as faces. But yeah, lots of great wrestling in that match, and it was certainly my highlight of the show. And I even tweeted out, I was like, well, this sad pre-show match is going to beat out like most of the, not sad because it was a bad match, sad because it was on the pre-show, was going to beat out most of the actual SummerSlam card, and it did indeed. So then we had SummerSlam proper kick off with Cena versus Corbin, and they really decided that they did not like Corbin talking on Twitter, apparently, because not only did they lose his Money in the Bank match, but here he just got squashed by Cena in a nothing throwaway match to kick things off. Cena was just taunting and just playing with the crowd most of the match. Corbin did his move where he slides out under the ring, runs around the ring post, and then immediately dashes back in. He did that same move in the same damn corner 3 times, and I was like, even this match is just boring in its lack of variety, and he did the same thing 3 times in a 10-minute match, where he got handily squashed by Cena, breaking Cena's SummerSlam streak, and yeah, that was just I don't know how they pull Corbin back from this. I don't really care because I've never really cared about Corbin anyway since coming into this, but to see him just in a week's time just thrown down to nothing is sad. It's sad to see for anybody. I will also add here that I was incredibly pissed that with Cena winning, I was 0-4 for my predictions, and I was already out of the running. There was no way I could come back from that to beat Cameron at that point. So that was as soon as I could, I was out, and that fuck that noise. Fuck you for weird booking. WWE, fuck you. Grr. Up next, you had the SmackDown Women's title, which was a fine match. Nothing really memorable about it. Natalya, apart from Natalya winning and ending the glow or whatever, but you didn't have a cash-in, so you just kind of had the heel win. Big Show versus Big Cass was up next with Enzo in the shark cage, and the most interesting thing about this ended up being that Enzo stripped down to his underwear and lubed up to slide himself out of the shark cage, which had the potential to go somewhere cool. Then he gingerly dropped out and then just got kicked in the face and was out for the match. So why the fuck did any of this happen? What? Even more, why the fuck did any of this happen was the Orton-Rusev match, where Rusev assaults Orton pre-match, and then the match starts, and Orton comes back with an RKO out of nowhere and just buries Rusev. And, why? Why? Raw Women's match was a solid match between Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks ended up winning. Lots of good stuff here. I'll be interested to see how this feud continues. Should it continue, I imagine, given that they made Alexa Bliss the main image of the No Mercy promo that aired during this, with her weird clapping and chanting and head turning with masks on thing. I imagine their rematch will somehow play into No Mercy, and maybe we'll see her take the title back. But it was a good match. And up to this point, this is where you started really realizing, oh, hey, every title that has been on the show has changed hands tonight. So I started thinking, oh, maybe they're going to, make that a story point and make it so, one of the titles is the only one that gets defended. And if it's Jinder was the only one able to successfully defend his title at SummerSlam, that would be an interesting story that would maybe give him some credibility. Or Lesnar was the only one who was able to defend his title out of SummerSlam, so he's the one that's why he's sticking around. Or AJ Styles is the only one that ended up retaining his United States title out of SummerSlam, so he is a worthy champ. But no, all three of them ended up retaining. So my thoughts of that being an interesting story point kind of fell by the wayside. Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt was a fine match. The most interesting thing of this, though, was Finn's entrance, going back to the demon entrance and being all painted up. Didn't really add anything else to the match outside of Spooky Doo versus Spooky Doo. Wait, that was what Adam from What Culture said. I said spoopy. Clearly, Finn Balor was the most spoopiest of the spoopies. Raw Tag Team titles up next. As expected, Ambrose and Rollins ended up taking the belts off of Cesaro and Sheamus. The easily best part of the match was when Cesaro went out into the crowd and took the beach ball, not 2 seconds after I tweeted out fucking beach balls. He came out and just ripped it apart, and I really hope Vince McMahon rewards him with a title run for that, a Universal title run sometime down the line. As a thank you for going in and saying, fuck you, beach ball. Match itself was good. There was a lot of great moments, a lot of great spots. You have basically four of the best singles competitors in that tag match, so it goes to make sense that they would have a good match together. But the tag team dynamics of both teams were great. Good to see the pseudo Shield reunion on top. It'll be interesting to see them hold the belts, hopefully for a while, and give them a good kind of credible story, because I think both of them had kind of been lacking for something of quality in recent months. U.S. title had a lot of Shane McMahon in it as special guest referee. He got pulled into a lot of the action as distraction, as body coverage, shield kind of stuff. I liked that they did the Shane counted to 3, and then as he was counting 3 realized that Styles had his foot on the rope, because that was the first thing I saw. I was like, his foot's on the rope, why is he counting? Oh, okay. And that's going to obviously set up and it has set up the Shane versus Owens feud that I think we're going to continue on with now. Great match all around. Probably because it had an actual normal clean finish, probably the best of the Owens and Styles matches that we've had on pay-per-views recently. He didn't have a weird wonky botched pin thing like you did at Battleground. You didn't have the, albeit clever, kind of blue ballsy count-out loss when Styles his foot went into the table. So lots of good stuff here in this match, and it got proper resolution, even if Shane was probably a little more involved than we needed him to be in the match. You had the WWE Championship up with Jinder Mahal and Shinsuke Nakamura, and just I feel bad because everybody's Shinsuke's a really great wrestler. He's one of the best in the world, and I never see it. The way WWE continues to book it, it's not there for me. He's just a weird guy that comes out, does a lot of weird stuff as his entrance, and I think I tweeted out, if you take away the strobe lights from his entrance, he just seems like a drunk guy stumbling out of a bar at 2 a.m. And and this was no different. you had the exact same kind of finish of the Sings interfering and then Jinder winning with his finisher, which he didn't even hit right here. And it, like, Jinder's not a good champion. Shinsuke has been a boring introduction into the SmackDown world. There was nothing in this match for me, which is not what you want from your top title. And finally, the main event, you had the Fatal 4-Way between Joe, Lesnar, Reigns, and Strowman. And overall, this was probably the runner-up for match of the night for me. Makes sense. I mean, it was big power spots. So it's not, technical stuff, but you had, like, everybody taking a beating. You had Reigns spearing Lesnar through the barricade. You had Lesnar getting power slammed through 2 tables and then a 3rd table thrown on top of him. But as soon as, like, they took him out on the gurney, it was like, well, yep, he's going to come back out and win this thing. It was a good match. Everybody, like, Lesnar definitely took a beating. I still don't like that he's the retaining champion. I felt like I wanted more out of Joe in this match. I felt like he kind of didn't get any huge spots like Strowman and Reigns and Lesnar did. I thought he was kind of the one that got buried a little bit in this match. And that sucks because he's the one I wanted to see rise above all of it. Looks like now they're going to go with Lesnar versus Strowman, which Strowman had a great performance in here, and I would happily see him beat Lesnar for the belt as well. But it was kind of it was a good spot match, moment after moment after moment. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen more from Joe to really make this like my match of the night for me, because it just felt a little unbalanced. But everybody did what they were asked to do and did it well, I thought. So those are my thoughts on SummerSlam. Overall, a good show. I didn't think a great show, but certainly a better show than the recent pay-per-views we've seen. You had a few very good, stellar matches. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the best of the night was relegated to the pre-show, and that's just a travesty. I don't know, I would have rather seen the SmackDown tag match in the main show over, let's see, you could have put Cena Corbin in the pre-show. You could have put the SmackDown Women's in the pre-show. You could have put Cass versus Big Show in the pre-show. You could put Orton Rusev in the pre-show. You could put Baylor Wyatt in the pre-show. None of those were monumental and had, the groundbreaking, or not groundbreaking, but, none of them had the wonderful back and forth dynamic that the SmackDown tag match did. So disappointing to see that on the pre-show. Lots of titles changed hands. It was an interesting kind of story to see kind of going through the night. Oh, yep, it's a bad night to be a champion here. And then that kind of all stopped at the U.S. title for the last 3 matches. So let me know what you thought about SummerSlam in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. And until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.